All right,
challenge.
Let me take Mr. Idahosa on that, talking about the Naira exchange rate. But we have seen the CBN try as much as possible to really defend the Naira. I mean, what's your take on that? Is it still going to have any major impact? I mean, even with the defense the CBN has been given to the Naira.
Well, the issue of defending the Naira has always been very questionable from a long-term perspective. In the short term,
when you say questionable,
questionable in the sense that what you use to defend a currency in a country that has only one essential export product. So really, it's not so much the CBN defending the Naira as the oil-producing companies producing enough dollars for CBN to have. If those exports of oil don't happen, there's nothing the CBN can use to defend anything. So it's really down to what can happen in the long term. In the short term, there is the reserves that the CBN is depleting to defend the Naira. But that reserve is a fixed amount, more or less. It hasn't grown. So it is continuing to go down. At some point, it will be clear that CBN will either completely deplete it or say, enough, I want to keep this amount to support our balance of trade. And then it will stop defending. Yeah. So the whole concept of defending the Naira based on the structure of our economy now, that's why it's questionable in the sense that it's an extremely difficult job for the CBN to do. But if you had a diversified economy where you have foreign exchange coming in from, for example, Nollywood, from food exports, from services, and a lot of other sources, then the CBN can have a sense of, over the medium term, the next 2 to 3 years, how much are we going to get from all these sources, and create a defense strategy that is based on that. Well, it is clear now that we have no control over oil price. OPEC tried to do that for the several years to control price. But there are so many producers of oil now outside OPEC that OPEC has lost the capacity to control the price. To that extent, CBN has lost the capacity to control Naira price through the country, and therefore it really has no strong instrument to defend the Naira. So the only thing that can happen in the medium term is that CBN will continue to deplete the foreign currency. At some point, the Naira will have to find a new level, unless we now address the issue of diversifying the economy. We have to, for example, we could very, very quickly achieve rice sufficiency. We spend millions of dollars importing rice. If we can achieve that, as we have done in cement, if we can achieve self-sufficiency in a certain number of critical products that we must import, like rice, then, and now we are trying to do that with automobiles. If we go that over, say, the next 6 months, 1 year, then there's a hope that CBN's short-term effort will be sustained by the result of significant reduction in imports. But if those things don't happen, CBN can only defend for maybe another 6 months, and then the results will be depleted to the point that CBN will have to openly say, sorry, we can't do it anymore.
Well, all right. There are other variables looked at. We have the inflation rate and, of course, the interest rate, which has, these variables have been major issues, especially when the CBN needs to decide on the trend the rate goes. Now, looking at this now with this oil price trend, what is the likely implication for these two variables, and what is expected from the CBN going forward? Mr. Idahosa, I would want you, I want you to answer that.
Well, the point is that CBN has certain instruments that it can use. It has tried all through the last administration, this administration. It has used those instruments. Yeah. We've said that the foreign exchange part of it is almost outside its control. But inflation, the CBN has, to a large extent, at least the last administration has tried to keep it between that broad range. And it was prepared, the last administration in CBN was prepared to pay the price. The last administration said, look, I'm going to keep inflation rates between 6 and 9%. If it means the economy will not grow, if it means that banks will not lend to grow the economy, that is the price we are willing to pay. We are going to control inflation. We are going to keep interest rate high, keep the MPR at 12%, and that is it. The last administration was not apologetic about it. But the new administration says, now we want to grow the economy. We want to create more jobs. Now, for you to do that, you now have to rethink your inflation rate and your interest rates. If you want to keep your MPR at 12%, bank lending at 22%, then how do you lend money to small and large industries that need money? At what percentage can they make profit? If they borrow at 22%, what can they produce? That means they cannot then create the employment that you want. So the CBN now has to rethink what it wants to do. It may have to go back to what the last administration was doing, or say, well, sorry, we have to grow the economy, and we have to do with more inflation, and allow inflation
to stimulate the economy.
Stimulate the economy and allow inflation to grow by some notches, so long as it can manage it, that is consistent with growth. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot have the growth and keep inflation where they are now.
Right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue with that conversation. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, the conversation continues.